Broadcasting live from the Business Radio X studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Welcome, everyone, to Project Management Office Hours, the number one live project management radio show in the U.S., broadcasting to you from the Phoenix Business Radio X studios in Tempe, Arizona. I'm your host, Joe Puz, PMO Joe, and for the next hour, we'll be talking project management with our special guests. On our last show, we had Scott Payne on, and we heard his story and all that PM Master Prep has to offer their clients. And we're very excited to have Scott and his team supporting the show as one of our sponsors. They offer a great solution for preparing for the PMP exam, and let's take a moment to hear from Scott.
If you're studying for the PMP exam, how excited are you to memorize the 756 pages of the PMBOK? You see, when I was studying, I realized that cramming facts in my head wasn't only not going to help me pass, but it wasn't going to make me a better project manager. So I abandoned what the experts told me, and I created a method that delivered an above-target score without memorizing a thing. You heard me, memorizing nothing. The power of my method is in 3 simple changes that help you make and cement all the connections you need to ace the exam's situational questions. I've distilled my method into a book, e-course, simulator, and training class that transforms how you or your team learn PMP. My name is Scott Payne, and I want you to be successful in the PMP exam. Go to pmmasterprep.com and learn how my PMP training method works, and use the code PMOJOE to receive 20% off every product that will make you battle ready for the PMP exam.
It's so great to have Scott and the PM Master Prep team on board with us. And, of course, what a fantastic offer to all the listeners out there. 20% off. Visit pmmasterprep.com and use promo code PMOJOE. Of course, also we have the PMO Squad, which is home of the Purpose-Driven PMO. And, of course, the Purpose-Driven PMO empowers people to deliver results. You can visit thepmosquad.com to learn more about all of the products and services that they offer. At the tail end of our last show, listeners may have heard us mention, I had just gotten an email live on air as we were on the show that we had been rated the number 6 project management podcast on the web. So we are super excited about that. And really, it's a testament to our guests and the leaders that we've had within the industry from across the globe come on and share their story and their voice. And it's nice to see that with that ranking, we know we're making a difference and we're contributing to the industry. So we're thankful to our sponsors, to our guests, and our support team for making that happen, and we're really appreciative of all of that. Also want to mention, last week I had recorded a webinar on projectmanagement.com, and that webinar on the Purpose-Driven PMO is now available. So if you go out to projectmanagement.com, follow the links to the on-demand webinar section, you will find the webinar out there. So please go out, take a look. I'd love your feedback and rating to see how we did with that. So now I am super excited to introduce our guests we have with us today. We have Roger Haskett joining us from Canada, and here in studio with me we have Jessica Kuhn. So welcome, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Roger, if you would take a minute here, our listeners would love to hear a little bit about you. If you can introduce yourself to them.
Sure. So that's a good question because there's many different things I could be saying at this point, I think. But basically, I'm an actor and a teacher that sort of crammed together, and I've started a company called Engagement Unlimited. And what I do is I go around the world now and I talk about we do a couple different things, but I talk mostly about the things that I think are really important. And the things that I think are really important these days are how to create internal power so that we can be bigger, better versions of ourselves when we really need it. And the power of play and how we really, I think, don't understand what the power of play is and how to use that power in our life to do things that are beyond what we think we can do. And I also talk about the age of engage, how to create engagement, how to what are the building blocks for engagement in your life? Like, how do you create more engagement in your life on your teams, at work, with your colleagues, but also at home with your family, with your friends? How do you bring the benefits of engagement deeper into your life and closer to you so that ultimately you can be doing the things that you really want to do? So that's sort of what I spend a bunch of my time doing now, going around and talking about those things. But the other part of my company, the Engagement Unlimited, does all sorts of team building and entertainment. So we do all sorts of things like mud pie kitchens for kids, where we build these amazing team building activities that create hero energy, at the same time donate to in-need daycares and preschools, something that they desperately need. So we do a variety of different things, but I think that sort of covers a range of it. I guess the last thing I should say is that I'm an author. So the first book I've written so far is called The Me You Want to Be, and it's all about how to close the gap between the me that you are and the me that you want to be. And I believe we all have a very intimate understanding of the gap that is between the you want and the you that you are right now. So that's sort of the stuff that I do.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. And I had met Roger earlier this year. We were both keynote speakers at a PMI event up in Toronto area. And after seeing his presentation, I said, man, I got to have this guy on the show. He is awesome. So thank you so much for joining us. And Jessica, thank you for joining us here in studio. And you're from Make-A-Wish America.
I am.
So super excited to hear more about you and what you're doing.
Me too. I can't wait to hear about Make-A-Wish.
I can't say that I have the acting background that Roger has, but Roger has taught me that many people have a little bit of actor in them. So I'll tap into that today a little bit, Roger. My name is Jessica Kuhn. I'm the Director of IT Governance and Compliance at Make-A-Wish America. For those of you who aren't familiar with Make-A-Wish, it's our mission to grant the wish of every eligible child. So children with life-threatening conditions and illnesses, we reach out to them and try to give them their one true wish in a time that is very difficult for them, for their family, and sometimes even for their community. So I've been a volunteer for 20 years. I started in San Diego as a volunteer at the San Diego chapter. We have 60 chapters across the U.S., and we have international affiliates as well. So it's a great honor to be here, and always an honor for me to speak about Make-A-Wish and the good cause that we are supporting.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And we're both members of the SIM organization. And your CIO, Bipin, was just named the Leader of the Year within the local SIM chapter. So really appreciate the work that you do, as well as the organization.
He's a bit of a legend around the office. So,
well, don't let him go to his head, right?
Too late.
All right. So let's talk some project management. And Roger, we'll get going with you. And in your introduction, you had talked about engagement. And obviously, project managers, we're trying to work with teams who the majority of the time don't report to us, right? So we needed to work on engagement and motivate and influence these team members without direct authority. What's your insights on engagement and how in project management, how they come together?
Well, I think that you identified something really interesting about project managers, and it's not actually unique to project managers, but I think that project managers deal with it on a regular, recurring, ongoing basis, which is you're sort of sitting in a room with stakeholders that all have different ideas of what they want, and your job is to sort of pull them together and unify them. That's an extremely challenging job at the best of times, but when you're doing it now in 2019, where people are not even in the same room, they're not even in the same building, they're across the globe, and you're interacting with them through devices. These are real challenges. We are humans are meant for face-to-face communication. We do our best communications when we're actually looking at the person we're talking to, because then we get to use all sorts of things like body language to say the things that are hard to actually put into words. So in terms of project management, I think that you guys are dealing with the same issues that most people are now dealing with, which is how to create engagement on teams that are diverse, and spread out, and in a world where engagement is starting to be demanded, but at the same time, it's like when you're in a meeting, like you're on a Skype meeting or any other Zoom meeting, and you're all supposed to be there and present, but the truth is you hear people clicking along in the background, and you're clicking along in the background as you look sideways off your screen to do different things. It's really challenging in these type of situations to create strong bonds on teams. And so I believe that we need to focus more on engagement in this time. Now that engagement is starting to be a word that we're using around our world, I believe that we need to start leaning into this concept and starting to go, okay, well, how do we create engagement? Like I have these very difficult realities in my life. Like I have teams that I don't have the control over often. They don't report to me, but also they're not even around me. And it's hard to have a relationship with them. So to me, 2019 and as we move forward into the future, engagement is going to become more and more of a talking point. It's going to become more and more of an issue in our cultures, in our organizations, as we say, hey, where is the engagement? Like, how are we supposed to be creating forward momentum if we don't have engagement discussions in the room? So to me, engagement is like we're scratching we're just at the beginning of what engagement can do for us. We're just starting to understand what the power of engagement is and the power of disengagement. So to me, these are issues that are like, it's not like I have, 1,000 answers at this point. And it's not that anyone, I think, has 1,000 answers. We're all in this world now starting to understand that we need to start talking about engagement as a practical application of power. That we need to be thinking that engagement is a way that we create power in our groups, in our teams, in our families, in our organizations. I don't know, did that sort of answer it? Did that really answer it? I don't know if it did.
I thought it did. I think, something that Roger does well that I think PM disciplines can benefit from is the human side of being a project manager. And a lot of times I think teams see us as this little group of people that are coming to bite at ankles and nip at heels. And I think, coming from a BA background, there's a lot of value in coming into any project with curiosity and understanding that everything is a brand new start. From that comes the ability to ask questions and understand why someone is feeling maybe reluctant to engage on a specific project or to get on board with the message or the purpose behind something. And I was just thinking as you were talking, Roger, that for me, I love critics. I love it because those are the people that I can go to and talk to, and they're going to beat up my idea and say, where am I not clear? What am I not thinking about? What is the dissent that I'm likely to hear? And how can I create a message that bridges what I'm doing, maybe from a very technical perspective, to give them something tangible and understand what the benefit is to them. So I think engagement is going to be critical as we move into the next phase of project management. The PMBOK is one piece, or any set of tools, your methodologies, those are all tools, but they're only brought to life by the fact that we're working with other people. And the more that we get to know and understand people in that process, I think the better that we can understand why they're not able to support us in what we're trying to do.
And you think about even this show, right? As we were going through the show, episode after episode, we started getting a following. We looked at the measurements, and 30 to 35% of our audience is from outside the U.S. Yeah. So from an engagement perspective, we had to reach out to people like Roger and others who were international because we knew we had an audience that's international. But how do we connect with them when we're doing a live show in studio here in Phoenix, Arizona?
Right.
Tiny Tempe.
Yeah. So here it's engagement, right? It's how do we bring people in? So I really support that. Again, I don't have the answers for it either, but it's a way of life now. We have to be able to do that.
There are ways. I mean, we're all people. That's at our core. That's the thing that I try to tap into when I go to work every day is if I'm talking to somebody that I know has had the project of their nightmares and they just don't trust the organization and their ability to get something done. And that's not just in one organization. It's many of the organizations I've worked at. There's always someone who's had that experience. I try to think about it from their point of view and put myself in their shoes and understand and ask questions just as I would if I was talking to somebody that I love or care about from the standpoint of tell me why you're not understanding me or what you're feeling. And I'm a big Brene Brown fan. So I just feel like being able to wrestle through some of those issues and be able to talk about them is a great starting point to building trust and creating that opportunity to be a resource to them.
Yeah. Jessica, you sound awesome. When I listen to you, I'm like, oh my goodness, you sound so smart and you pull things together in such a great way.
I have fooled you all.
It's great. So this is the thing I think about project managers. I am not a project manager. So I am so far removed from a project manager that I feel such tremendous, what's the word, like awe for what project managers do. Like I can appreciate what PMs do, project managers do, but I can't replicate it, or it's really hard for me to replicate it. Like I think it's quite amazing, this ability to pull things together and be at the center of a web that isn't often even of your designing. But it's fascinating to me to hear you then talk about, and Joe as well, talk about the human component, because I believe that this is tied to engagement. I believe this is also the wave of the future. And I think that mental health is showing us the way as well, that there's so much more appreciation for the fact that when we come to work, we're human still. Like even, like, in the 1950s, you were supposed to come to work as a robot, really. Like, really, you were supposed to be not emotional. You were supposed to be there just doing the work that was put in front of you without really putting yourself into the mix. And that's really was the goal. Like, what a crazy goal that we were identifying, that we wanted the best of people at work without really wanting them to be human. As if that's possible, that we can expect people to be the best without them also bringing along their humanity. It's very exciting to me that we are discussing more and more as I go to more conferences and I see this sweeping through the event industry, this idea that we have to understand that we're human and we have to respect what that means, and that humans have strengths and we have weaknesses. And we are never going to be only one of those things, that we're always mixed up with strong and weak. And that if we want the best out of people, we have to start with that recognition. And we have to start with the fact that they're human too. And when I listen to you, Jessica, talk about how treating people who criticize you and with the curiosity and leaning in and talking to them, I go, wow, like that's the energy that will make a difference in this world.
Yeah. It certainly helps that I work in an organization that is so supportive of, bringing your best self to work. That is our job, is really to help people. So, I think we're an organization of helpers. We're people that want to make a difference. And so that helps a lot. But I think even in the context of technology, there's really no way to separate out who we are as people from what we're building, especially in the organization I'm in, right? Everything that we're building is purpose driven. And it has to have a human component to it, from whether we're talking about our wish families or even our chapters. I mean, our chapters are every single day as they're doing their job and granting wishes, they are experiencing that firsthand, and they're going through the same emotions that oftentimes the family's going through. And so it's our obligation to say, how does this technology line up to who we are as people and who we are as an organization, and make that real for them? Otherwise, I think we're just kind of doing something ordinary. And I think we all strive for more than that.
So, Joe, were you going to say something?
Well, I was going to say, when we look at the response executives give when they're asked the question, what's your most valuable asset? Now the answer that they all give is our people, right? Yeah. And that brings home the fact that we are people, right? We're not a position, we're not a title, we're not a role, we're people. And understanding that the purpose of why we're there and connecting to that purpose led to the purpose-driven PMO, right? I mean, that's the mindset we have behind that, is understand as people, when we empower you to achieve a higher purpose, and then we break away the bonds that tie you and restrict you, guess what? Yeah. We actually go achieve that purpose. It's such an amazing power, right?
Well, and whether or not it's a team that reports to you or a team that is getting together to achieve a common goal, how you value and treat and engage with them is absolutely important. And I have to give huge kudos to the Make-A-Wish America HR team, because I think they've done a great job of bringing disciplines in like ADCAR and change management. Being able to, especially in an organization of 60 chapters, they each have their own boards. We have our own board. We're answering to many masters, and it's really important that we're able to put ourselves in the shoes of many different minds. And so being able to bring a team together and say, tell us how you're experiencing this. How is that technology hindering you, helping you? Understanding it from both that BA point of view as well as that PM point of view, and matching up with that, I think, is really critical.
Yeah, and tying into what Roger had earlier talked about, kind of the co-located world that we live in. And Jessica, you just alluded to it, right? Make-A-Wish is a federated model, right?
Yes.
It's a nonprofit organization. It's different than your standard company. So how does project management work in that federated nonprofit organization?
Yeah, it's definitely something that has been a learning lesson. And I've worked in franchising. So there are some parallels in that world. There's still differences simply because we're a not-for-profit as well. And there's such a critical mission at the end of everything that we're doing. And so I think what we've learned, and we're continuing to learn, I think that's the honest thing, is I try to go into these things with a beginner's mind every day, knowing that, people change, faces change, our circumstances are changing. And so we have to remain adaptable as PMs and understand that the method that worked yesterday may not be the method that works today, and not be married to the tactic. But a lot of it has to do with being change agents. I don't know that that's true of every role I've ever held in project management, but especially here, we have to see ourselves as more than just BA PM. We have to see ourselves as change agents and really engage with chapter staff and say, let us understand how this is going to affect you. You tell us. You're the expert in your everyday, and we aren't. We're at the national office trying to bring and deliver things at scale, but we're not living your world every day. So you sit down with us and have a conversation and a dialogue, and then let us find a good way for this project, not for every project, but for this project, to make things work so that you get the most out of what we're going to deliver. And it does. It takes many, many conversations. In some cases, it follows that ADKAR principle of people have to hear the same communication 5 to 7 times, because every chapter is essentially their own business, and they're all operating in their own ways. So we want to be supportive of that. That's how our mission is made great, because they're able to work locally. So we want to support that. And find ways to give flexibility without compromising on things like data quality or the product that we deliver. So,
right at the beginning, Joe, you asked me about steps that people can take, like PMs can take about to bring more engagement into their life. And there are actual things that I sort of made a joke of going, I don't have 1,001 ideas, but there actually are real ideas out there that people can do. And we've talked about many of them already, like communicating, talking, like looking at the people and caring about them, having a curious mind that Jessica said, having a beginner mind. These are all great steps. But there's lots of other steps. Like in my talk, The Age of Engage, I reference a book called Magic. It's about employee engagement. And in it, they have an acronym. Their acronym is MAGIC. And they say that their argument is that you can create engagement through this acronym. So M stands for meaning. A stands for autonomy. G stands for growth, like we're doing MAGIC. I stands for impact. That's a big one. And C stands for connection. But when I was so excited because that Jessica's on with me on the radio show, because I wanted to ask this question, because the first one is meaning. I also don't believe magic covers it all. I believe magic is great, but I created my own acronym, which is SHEMPS, which is like SCCHEEEEMMPPP. Because there's so many different ways of creating engagement. And like the P's are like for positive or passion or play. But meaning is so integral to humans, to our species, that the moment you put meaning into the room, the moment someone feels meaning for them, they get engaged. They lean in. They go, this now is meaningful for me. So I will put my body, my energy, my thoughts, and my presence into, like, closer into this issue. That's why I think lean in is an interesting concept. Like, you lean your body in because you're engaged. And so for Jessica, what I wanted to ask her is, what is it like to work in an organization? Like, you volunteered for 20 years, if I understand correctly, and now you've been working for about 4 years in this organization. On a daily basis, do you feel the effect of working in meaning? Like, I would assume that this Make-A-Wish has tremendous meaning for you, otherwise you wouldn't have volunteered. So on a daily or weekly basis, like, do you get the power of engagement when you're like on a day that you don't want to go into the office? Are you like able to pick yourself up by going, man, if I don't go into this office, I'm not going to be helping that child, or I'm not, like, does that give you power or not? I want to know.
It absolutely does. And for a lot of reasons, I think above and beyond just the fact that we have an amazing mission, right? I think anyone who has volunteered ever in their lives, who has had an experience that others came to the rescue for, when you've been a part of an experience like that, it lifts you up too. And so I think even beyond the mission, it's that every day my work has meaning in a different way. And we talk about it all the time, that on our drive into work, just knowing that the thing that we get to do is go and bring our expertise to something so meaningful in the world it's an absolute gift. I feel very, very lucky. And to be quite honest, sometimes I'm pinching myself that I made it here simply because, after I was actually in the video game space before this, ironically enough. So it's a really interesting background that's led me to this place. But I think when you believe in something really strongly, you find a way there. And that's exactly how I ended up here, is just keeping an eye on what opportunities existed and getting in at the ground level from the standpoint of building this IT team that we have now that's making, I think, some really great strides into creating wishes that are really going to be special. So I think that's a really great question. Right. I mean, the same question I would think applies to you as well. Being able to go out and create energy in an organization has to be pretty powerful, I would think.
I find when I look back on my life now, I realize that my life has been in search of power. I think I'm like most people. I feel when I look back over my life, I see multiple, like a field of examples of me where I felt that I didn't have enough power, where I felt that I made choices, that I made the wrong choice because I didn't have the internal power to stand up for what I believed, or to stand up for what was important for me, or to stand up for me, or to stand up for others, to stand up to a bully that's bullying someone else. Like, I look back on my life and I see a dearth of power when I wanted it. So I have spent my life constructing areas of power that I could then use to do the things that I want to do. Like, this is, to me, the idea of power. It gives us the ability to put our energies into the things that we think are important. Like, that's the meaning aspect. Like, I get to work on a daily basis, maybe not a daily basis. I get to work on a at least weekly basis, though, on things that grab my attention and grab my passion. And they're grabbing my attention and my passion because they're things that mean something to me, and to others, but to me. So I think that one of the things that we're looking at is moving into a world where Generation Z, their desire, which is purpose over profit, is like, to be like, stereotypical and to brand everyone with one brush. Like, millennials started this, and the Generation Z is pushing this along. The idea that I would rather work on something that's meaningful to me, that has meaning and purpose to me, than something that is just going to put money in my pocket. And I would rather support organizations that put meaning and purpose into the world than just put money into some shareholder's pocket. And I see that 2025 and 2030, I think that what's happening is that our world is going to have to, because we are changing, is going to have to start creating more ability to line passion and purpose up with work. And that people who are in that world, like the next billionaire is the person who figures out an app that will tie your meaning to what you can actually do for the next 20 minutes or the next hour or the next 2 hours. Because we are driven to have meaning in our lives. And we live in a world right now that is extremely dangerous. I don't mean just physically. I mean, we live in a world that's teetering on the edge of which way are we going, downhill badly or some other way that we construct. So these issues, I believe, are first and foremost in more and more people's minds as we start to go. It's not enough just to have a world. We have to have a world that supports us and the best of us. Otherwise, what world are we going to have?
Yeah, Joe, this speaks very highly to this idea that we cannot, as a project management, as an industry, as a group of people, as a think tank, we can't lean only on our tactics, I don't think. We can't just pull things off the shelf, apply them, and move to the next thing like it's a conveyor belt, right? I think we have to be able to look at it and say, how do we make this even better? How do we take best practice and apply it in a way based on the organization we're in or the circumstances that we see or the team that we have? How do we get the most out of all of those things by pulling from all of the best practices that we have and also innovating above and beyond that? So for my team, I always encourage them to think creatively about you have the nuts and bolts, but what can we build with this? Do we build what we always build, or is there something different because what we're doing has somebody on the other side that needs something different? And so I think this whole idea of giving people purpose and meaning in what they're doing, it has to also be about, it's not every problem is just solved magically by these silver bullets of what we can pull off the shelf. They're tools, and the way we use them as project managers is what brings out the best in them.
Yeah, and to provide some context, right, to the amount of meaning, in the time we were prepping for the show to the time we finished the show, 2 wishes are going to have been granted for children.
54 today.
Right, every 34 minutes, a wish is granted. And when we stop and think about what Roger just said and the organization that Jessica works at, and you look at purpose and meaning, the innocence of children is being impacted on a regular basis, and that gives us purpose and meaning to go deliver for an organization such as Make-A-Wish. That's right. And as project managers, we all have to internalize that. Right. And that's, again, the purpose-driven PMO is we're working towards big P, not purpose with a small p. It's purpose with a big P. Mm-hmm. Understand that within your daily projects, within your PMOs, and strive to achieve and empower yourselves and your teams to go do that. And to hear Jessica say, hey, let's be creative. Let's go find a solution. Let's not pull it off the shelf. You're empowering them to go do that.
Absolutely.
And Roger, that makes me think of the power of play that you've talked about, right? It's not an off-the-shelf solution, right? Share with everybody the power of play and help us understand that more.
Sure. So I believe that I'm on a mission to take play out of the gutter and put it into the spotlight, like into the limelight where it belongs. Because while we say that we honor play, well, all around us, we act as if we honor play, but the proof is in our action. And when important things need to be discussed, play is sent outside to the playground with all the other little play fellas, while the important adults stay inside and talk about the important things. I believe, and it's not just me, neuroscience is backing this up, thank goodness, that is the exact opposite way to be thinking about play. Play is a power. One of the ways that I have got to where I have got to in this life is because I grabbed onto the power of play early on. And I use the power of play to help me get over and get around and get through the hardest obstacles. I often use play against the hardest things I face because it is one of the few things that can bust through almost any barrier. So play, and by play, what I really mean is playful. Play is a hard thing to do. People hire my company and pay us, really good amounts of money so that we will guarantee play for their events, for their Christmas events, for their learning, their conferences, whatever. Because play is challenging. It has rules and structures, and you have to think about it and make sure that it's going to work for everyone. But playful is an attitude. Playful is an attitude that anyone can have at any time, and it can change on a dime. And this is what I believe we want to be reaching for. We want to be reaching for and pulling closer to our lives. This idea that playful is a way to react to the world. That playful is a way that pulls power into you so that when you're up against things that you don't know how to deal with, if you approach them with a playful manner, you will find solutions that people who approach it with a rigid, I've already got ideas about how to solve this, or it's going to have to be solved the same way every other problem is solved. Those people will find their solutions lacking, whereas the person who has a playful energy will, and this is just relating to what Jessica said about creativity. If you have a playful energy, you have a creative attitude. And a creative attitude is what you're looking for in this world, isn't it? I mean, no matter what job you're in, isn't creativity a helpful, maybe it's not true, maybe not any job, but most jobs, creativity is an asset that is so desired that we want it in the people that we hire so much, and yet it is so hard to find. The more people are playful, man, the more project managers or BAs are playful, the more power they will pull into their life, I believe, and the higher they will rise in terms of where they want to go.
Roger, do you think it's hard to find people like that, or it's difficult to create environments that foster that?
I think it's both. I think that we're working out of a negative. We're working out of a hole. Like play and playfulness is an attitude that has been buried deeply in the ground by now, by our culture. And we believe that the only real value to play is to have kids do it so that they get out of our way. Right? Like that's the way most people's attitude when you scratch down about play really sort of, it's not really that valuable. Like, why would I do it? I've got important things to do. So I believe this is a culture. This is a cultural change, and cultural change are extremely slow to happen until they are extremely fast. Right? They are extremely slow until all of a sudden the tipping point and all of a sudden everyone's doing it. I believe that playful is the same thing. I believe that we have to work, we have to model, we have to teach, we have to show, we have to educate so that this concept starts levitating out of the hole it's in and starts rising up into the sunshine where it belongs.
I agree with that. I feel like leaders have to model it. I think leaders have to demonstrate how creativity and, to your point, play are integrated into what you do every day, that every project is a new opportunity to create something special. And that's true of any industry. I know it's kind of my position in the organization that I'm in makes some of that seem maybe easy. But I think even when I think about video game space, when I think about other technology spaces that I've seen people operate in, there are ways to make that happen. And it's not just about installing the ping pong table in the break room. There's more to that. And things like the art of Socratic questioning and ways of engaging people in the dialogue to understand them. I just think a lot of that is an opportunity to model and demonstrate that this is possible.
Yeah, I'm often find that there's this tremendous disconnect between our youth and our adulthood, right? When we are adults, we want our alone time and tell our kids, go play. And we coach them and we mentor them and we teach them. And then our children grow and they get to 25 and we just expect them to know everything. We stop coaching, we stop mentoring, we stop training, and we stop telling them to go play.
Well, and the other thing we do is we define a measure of success, I think. Like, what is success just for all of us, for our teams, for ourselves? We say, this is what success looks like. And sometimes, I was telling Roger, there was a show on Netflix I watched the other day where there was a pro surfer who was talking about all this pressure that he was feeling as he was going through all of these different surf competitions. And then at the end of the day, he realized that surf was play for him. It was this experience that other people couldn't dictate for him what that had to mean. And I feel like when people start to connect to that part of what they do and they say to themselves, well, maybe obviously success is important, like a measure of that is important. But then what does success mean to me, and how can I make those things work together and cooperate to get an even better result? That's when a team really sings. That's when great things happen in a team. And that's when projects turn out, I think, to be more collaborative, when people work together and have an outcome that's ideal for everyone.
I don't think there's... Oh, go ahead, John.
No, you go ahead, Roger.
I was just going to say, I don't think there's any, there's no surprise or it's not surprising to be looking at a team that's deeply engaged and deeply, as a result, I would hope, also on some level, deeply playful. And then look at a team that is deeply disengaged, or a team that is deeply unplayful. It is no surprise when we hold those two ideas up in our brain that we would expect that the team that is engaged and playful would have better outcomes. I think that we all instinctively as humans understand when we work best as humans. And when we work best as humans, it's not at each other's throats, although conflict is useful and beneficial in a team, as you alluded to earlier, Jessica. It's great to have people who don't agree with you. And let's take a sideways step here and just talk about diversity and inclusion for a moment. What we're finding, the answer to diversity and inclusion is wrapped up in the reality of the statistic that teams that have diverse bodies on them, diverse faces, diverse looks, diverse thoughts, diverse energies. Groups that include those type of energies are stronger groups. They produce stronger results. So we want to have people who disagree with us. But anyway, back to the point, we know that we want to be on the team. Like, we want to be on the team that's engaged. We want to be on the team that has playful energy going on. Like, who wouldn't choose that? Not just because it's nicer and more enjoyable, but because we believe deep down inside that we're going to get more done.
It's interesting, again, that you talking about teams, talking about play. Some of the most admired or looked up to people in our society today, right or wrong, are professional athletes who play on teams and get paid exorbitant amounts of money. And it's that disconnect from youth to adulthood that I always come back to, and I try to bring into my own life. They get to stay youthful. They still get to play. And we, the adults of the world, go watch them and turn them into heroes and compensate them silly amounts of money to be players. They're even their term, players, right? They get to play.
Totally. And I would, on top of that, say the same thing is true of celebrities. They are also people, like, one of the reasons I went into acting, like, one of the reasons it appealed to me is because when you go to work as an actor, you go to work on a play. Like, literally the word is in the work. Like, I don't go to work on work. I go to work on a play. Like, so just like, think of the attraction for someone like me who's going, I really like to play. I've got choices in the world. I could take jobs where everyone refers to what they do as work, or I could choose a job that potentially could pay me more than almost any other job in the world. But that job is referred to as play. Not that it's not work. Like, but I'm an actor, man. It's tons of work. For athletes, tons of work, clearly. But still, the energy is what you just identified, Joe. They're players.
It's interesting. It's like an aspirational. The people that we're talking about, it makes it. So these are people that we feel we aspire to that, right? We aspire to having that dynamic. It's aspirational. It's not within reach. And I don't think that's, to your point, I think it creates this kind of valley of like, well, that's not something I can achieve necessarily. So play isn't an option for me, maybe unconsciously or indirectly. And I think that's where what Roger's saying about creating and modeling that in an everyday sense is so important, because it can't just be aspirational. It has to be real for us, I think. I mean, Roger, I don't know what you think about that, but
it does have to be. And I think that putting it into aspirational and pushing it away from reality for people is the problem. Like, it shouldn't be, look at what those people are doing, how great for them, while I turn back to my computer. It should be, look at what those people are doing. If they can do it, what can I do? Like, if they can make a life where play is glorified, what about in my life? Like, what can I do to bring play so it glorifies me somewhat? And again, I don't talk about play just from the point of view because it's fun. That is a huge issue for me. I insist, I demand on regularly having fun, like on a daily basis, many times finding moments to have fun. I demand that, but it's not, what was I going to say about that? What was I saying about that? I now lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
Does anyone remember?
You're on a good roll.
Well, that's enough. Let me pull the rug a little bit on this. Let's shift, because Jessica, you've mentioned a couple of times ADKAR. Yes. And before meeting you and getting to know you a little better, I didn't know anything about ADKAR, so it was brand new to me. So I'm guessing listeners out there, this may be new to them.
Yeah, so it's a change management methodology, and it's a hugely helpful framework to operate within. We've recently been training our national organization as well as our chapters on how to approach change, making it something that's a desire, making it something that's a knowledge set that they have, making it something where they're continuing to learn and grow around that model. So we have some people that are ProSci certified within our organization that have been sharing that discipline out. Honestly, I think often change management is kind of a bit of an afterthought on projects, at least in the experience that I've had. People get on a roll, businesses get excited about what they're going to build, things get moving, and the people that are actually going to consume that technology or consume that product are often thought about a little later in the game, right? From a communication perspective. Yeah. And that's been a growing opportunity for our organization, is to start to create more opportunity to give people a sense for what we're bringing to the table and why and when and how it's going to affect them and what the benefit is to them and how they are going to need to respond to the things that we're putting out. As a project manager, it's been something that in recent history and some of the projects that we've been working on, even things like server upgrade deployments, it has been hugely helpful to be able to be change agents as part of that process and to say, okay, let's move you through and start just by giving you some awareness of this. Now let's give you some desire. Let's give you reasons to be desirous of this change. Let's give you more knowledge about this change. So moving them through all of these pieces and not just leaving them in the lurch while we're doing the development is a huge part of the success that we've had on recent projects. Absolutely.
Okay, so what's so interesting about that is that you're describing from a different angle what the ladder of engagement is. So you're talking about it from a user experience, which I think is amazing. But the ladder of engagement idea is that if you can't expect people to jump from the basement to the top floor of a building, they need to actually move their way up there. And so what you do is you give them runs. You give them simple actions they can reach and do easily at that level, which will then pull them up to the next rung, which will allow them to do something that's a little bit more beyond them, but now is reachable because they've got to where they are. And now they've got to the third rung, so they can reach now the fourth rung. And so this ladder of engagement is this idea that you pull people along to where all of a sudden, after a year, they go, I'm super engaged. Like if I'm involved in a citizen group, I started off by going to a meeting. Now I'm leading a meeting. Now I'm actually collecting volunteers. Now, and you move up the ladder. So what you're sort of describing from my perspective is what I heard was a way of creating a ladder of engagement for the user experience where you're going, okay, you're not going to get to the top rung at the beginning, but we can start here and get you moving and start telling the story of you getting to know this product so that you start to move up on your own because you're motivated to reach for the next rung.
Yeah, in my mind, this is a great example of a tool set that humanizes the work that we do. And I think I would encourage project managers to understand that discipline, to look at ProSci, to go to the ProSci website, take a look at what materials they have and information, and to bring those disciplines into your organization and bring them in creatively. The discipline is there, the tool is there. The way that you execute that is going to really depend on the organization you're in, the people you're working with, the project you're on. And I think the best project managers that are going to serve as that change agent and really help support the team in rolling this out are the ones that are going to look at that tool and say, what is going to be the way to bring this to bear for the organization and the people that we're serving?
All right. So I have to ask, I have all guests fill out a guest information form before they come on the show because I want to get to know them a little bit better. And on Jessica's form, she put the names of her two dogs, and one of them is Taco Gary.
That's right.
That's the best dog name I think I've ever heard.
Okay.
Can you share the story behind that?
It's one dog. Someone the other day, I said my dog's name is Taco Gary, and they're like, is that two dogs or one dog? I said, it's one dog. So Taco is deaf. He was given up by a family that didn't want to work with a deaf dog. And my other dog was thought to be deaf as well, Atlas. And so we were excited to adopt another deaf dog. And because he's deaf, it doesn't really matter what we call him because he's not going to come when we call him. So I wanted to name him Taco, and my husband wanted to name him Gary because he thought he looked kind of human. He's a Australian blue heeler. And so we just started calling him Taco Gary, and he's been Taco Gary ever since, which I feel kind of like, it sounds a little bit like a frat boy name, but he is a little bit of a punk. So I guess it works.
That's great. I love that. And Roger, you had mentioned at the beginning of the show, you've got a new book out, right? That's your first book.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the book is called The Me You Want to Be, and it's really wrapped around my first talk, which is called Pressure Cooker Confidence, and really is about how to walk into rooms where you want to do magnificent things, but you find it hard to do normal things like breathe. So this has been my journey. I walk into audition rooms when I was acting, like, as my career, which happened for about 20 years. I was walking into audition rooms, 5 to 7 times a week, where I wanted to do really magnificent things, and I found myself not able to breathe. So not only not doing magnificent things, but doing really crappy things from my point of view. And so I started to teach. When I'm confronted with my shortcomings, I usually do 3 things. I usually start studying with other people, because it's important to hear things come out of people's faces, right? I'm a human person. I'm a believer in the human connection. So I started to read. First of all, I started to study with other people, and then I started to teach. People might think that's weird. Like, why would you teach something that you don't know? But I find that nothing forces me to learn faster and better than having to get up in front of other people and teach it. So, it's a motivating force for me. So I started to teach how to audition. What happened over time is I started to develop these things I called Rogers rules. And I call them Rogers rules for 2 big reasons. One is that you guys aren't Roger. So it's really important to understand that these are the rules that I created to help me. I believe they'll help other people as well, but they might not specifically help you in your very specific situation. The other reason I call them Rogers rules is if you say it fast enough, it sounds like you're saying Roger rules. That makes me very happy. But so these rules started to develop, and I started to go, these things are really useful. And they're not just useful for walking into rooms. They're actually really useful for creating internal power. And internal power, I believe, is the thing that determines whether we are bigger than we think we can be or smaller than we really are. Internal power is the thing that allows us to either reach up for something that looks beyond our reach, or it forces us to reach down into something that is substandard for what we can do. So internal power became a real focus of my attention as I was working on me being an actor and helping other people be actors, and walking into rooms where I wanted to do magnificent things. And those rules started to resonate for how to live your life. And as I was working on the book, finally, I came around to the title. I had all sorts of titles. For like a year and a half, I was working on titles until I finally found this one. And it was like people say, I looked at titles for months. And when I finally hit this title, when I thought of it, I was like, that's it. I don't need months to know, because I believe everyone knows about the me that they want to be. And they know that it's not exactly the me that they are. And that they want to be that person in the moments that matter the most to them more and more. And so I started to, I wrote this book to help people. And it turned into sort of like a generalized self-help book about how to have internal power to do the things that you want to do. So yeah, that's what it's about.
Well, thank you you sent me a copy of the book, so thank you so much for that. I haven't been able to get through all of it yet, but when I do complete, I'll jump out to Amazon and write a review out there for you. And where can everybody get a copy of the book? Is it available for purchase?
You can get it at Amazon for the written version, or you can get it at Audible or iTunes for the Audible or the audiobook version. I really recommend the audiobook version. I'm reading it. I think that I'm a better speaker than writer at this point in my life. Or more that I speak in a very specific way. And when people read it, unless you hear my voice, I think it can be challenging. So I really recommend the audiobook. But regardless, it's Audible, iTunes, or Amazon.
That's awesome. Well, we are, surprisingly, we go through these shows so fast. I think I say that every episode. Wow, we're at the top of the hour. We're approaching the close of the show. And I would certainly want to give each of you an opportunity to just mention anything we didn't get to cover today, or how listeners can get in touch with you if you want to share more about you. And Jessica, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I encourage people to go to wish.org and learn more about Make-A-Wish and understand what our mission is all about. I can be reached at jkuhn@wish.org if people have questions about project management or are interested in reaching out and talking more about change management. I look forward to hearing from people and learning from you too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And Roger, same for you. Any last words and how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pretty easy to get a hold of, either on Twitter at Roger Haskett, LinkedIn under Roger Haskett. You can email me, roger@rogerhaskett.com. There's a theme there, it seems. Yeah, I think that's, and I'm so happy to be on, and I'm so glad that you paired me up with Jessica. This was really interesting, and for me, very interesting to hear, like, to see a little deeper inside a BA project manager's brain set, like a brain, the way of thinking, because I find it very fascinating. I think project managers are extremely powerful people, and I wish all of us more power of engagement in our lives, and more power of play in our lives, and more power of being the you that you want to be in your life. Like, I believe the more that we have this type of power, the better our world will be, you know?
Well, thanks, Roger, for being on so much. And I think between you and Jessica, we shared so much today that you don't get from a PMP manual or the PMBOK, right? We learn ADKAR and the book Magic, and the power of meaning and the power of purpose, and how being creative and playing and empowering and engagement, all within the project management discipline, can help us be better. And not one of them is a technical skill.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the show, is we can bring on experts like both of you and have you share those experiences with people who can benefit from it. So thank you both for being a part of this and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
So our next show will be Thursday, August 1st, and we're going to have Catherine Halpin and Nicholas Briesen. Nicholas will be joining us from Germany, so we continue our march around the globe and bringing on international leaders within the industry. We have a great lineup of guests coming up after them, including Colin Ellis from Australia, Deb Hildebrand, Andy Jordan from Honduras, Ray Reagan, Rich Maltzman, Jim Stewart, Laura Burford, Carol Osterwheel from England, and of course we've got so many more planned out for the rest of the year. A reminder as well that these shows are recorded, so please subscribe to Project Management Office Hours on Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, whatever your podcast platform of choice is. Don't be bashful. Write a review, leave a rating. We appreciate that. And also, of course, thank you to our sponsors, PM Master Prep and the PMO Squad. Visit pmmasterprep.com, use promo code PMOJOE, and receive 20% off all their services. And then today, of course, we talked about the power of meaning, the power of purpose. If you visit the PMOsquad.com, you can learn more about our purpose-driven PMO and see how we can help you bring purpose to your organization in your project management space. So that's it for now. Office hours are closed. Until next time, I'm PMO Joe, and you've been listening to Project Management Office Hours.